Jammu Green was an advisor for the Clinton campaign 2008, joins us now. Good to see you. What is Kamala Harris so scared of in talking to what would seemingly be a friendly White House press corps?
Well, thanks for having me, Leland. Nice to see you again. I wouldn't say that Vice President Harris is afraid. I think I heard her say just a couple of days ago, if Donald Trump has something to say, he should say it to her face. And I do just have to say that I think you nailed it on the head when you talked about Donald Trump and his intentions with going to the National Association of Black Journalists yesterday. He changed that conversation. Yeah. He comes across as being strong. And unfortunately, a lot of my friends and colleagues on the left fell for it hook, line, and sinker, as well as the media.
Well, thank you. We try to, they say blind squirrels get an acorn every once in a while, so thank you. But I come back to this. If Kamala Harris says, hey, if you want to say it to my face, Donald Trump, show up at a debate. By all accounts, they're going to debate in September. But I know there have been dozens of media organizations who have all put in requests for interviews with her. And she's a woman from a ticket, Biden-Harris, in a party that says the press are essential, and bashing the press is a threat to democracy. So why wouldn't she be giving interviews, you think?
I'm sure she will be giving interviews. I'm not in the middle of the Harris campaign, but I know they will be talking to the media as much as possible in the next 95 days.
Meanwhile,
this is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So yesterday I explained to you guys, I believe in multiple videos, why the Trump campaign strategy of questioning Kamala Harris's race is actually a genius strategy in regards to changing the conversation that was happening in the media at the time, in which there was nothing but fawning and positive press coverage of Kamala Harris, okay? And this was hurting the Trump campaign because essentially the spotlight was on Kamala, and the press was essentially making Kamala the best thing since sliced bread, okay? They were running a propaganda campaign on the American people to redefine who Kamala Harris is, because we all know that Kamala Harris is the most unpopular vice president in history, probably more unpopular than Dick Cheney, which is really hard to do, okay? But she is extremely unpopular, and the media, again, is trying to change that, right? Which is why she's not doing any interviews, which is why she's not taking any questions, which is why she's not talking about policies. She's not doing anything except holding these rallies in very friendly places where she does not have to answer any questions whatsoever, while the mainstream liberal media transforms her image, her brand, into something that it's not, okay? And the Trump campaign realized this, and they said, okay, we have to get the media attention back on Trump so that we can define who Kamala actually is. And Kamala Harris is a fake. That is the reason for why Trump said, hey, I didn't know Kamala Harris was black, in response to a question from the journalists who made the whole conversation racial, right? They're the ones that wanted to talk about race, who said, hey, do you believe that Kamala Harris was Joe Biden's VP pick just because she was black? And Trump says, hey, I didn't even know she was black. Thought she was Indian. Okay, and that has sparked a huge conversation even within the black community about Kamala Harris's race and whether or not she is fake. And of course, part of the strategy from the Trump campaign, and this is why it was so genius, is that he knew that the media would fall for it. Hook, line, and sinker. That now the conversation from the media is not fawning press coverage over Kamala Harris, but now the media and the Harris campaign are on defense. Now the media has to defend Kamala Harris's black identity, which is going to be hard to do considering how there's so much evidence and proof out there of Kamala Harris basically growing up as an Indian woman who all of a sudden, when it was convenient for her, decided, hey, you know what? I want to be black, right? I want to embrace my black side, okay? And this is not a new conversation. This is a conversation that has been happening for years, even on networks like CNN. When Don Lemon was working there back in the day, he was arguing with black liberal propagandists about whether or not Kamala Harris is black or African-American. Like, what is she?
Black woman.
Okay, that's
Her
why I
father
agree with
is a
that.
black
I
man from
agree with
Jamaica.
that. But
Now,
is
I don't
she
wanna get into the
African
pigment. I
American?
don't wanna get into the pigment issue.
But is she African American? There is a difference. There's nothing wrong with that. No one is trying to take anything away from her.
Let's go down into her lineage.
I think you're falling. I think you're falling into a trap of that. All she had to do was say, "I am black, but I'm not African American." That's it.
Let me say this. I'm not falling in a trap. I'm not falling in. Let me finish. Hold on. I'm not falling into a trap by that. When she goes down her lineage, many Africans landed in Jamaica and all these other Caribbean islands. So she could indeed
Jamaica's
be
not America.
African American mixed with others. But she is
Jamaica's not America.
But she is a black woman. She was born
did not
here
come
in
out of
America.
Jim Crow.
Okay, well
I'm
let's go
just
into
saying.
Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was born in Canada.
I'm not talking about Ted Cruz.
His father
This
was
is not
Cuban.
about Ted Cruz. You're changing
I know,
the subject.
but you know what? We cannot. It was hypocrisy. I'm not changing the subject.
Yes, you are changing the subject.
She's a black woman. I don't know what you want.
Cruz.
Okay.
And again, because the Kamala campaign is built on nothing but abortion, and Kamala Harris is a black woman, not an Indian woman, but a black woman, okay? This criticism from Trump cuts at the heart of everything that the Democrats and Kamala Harris have going for them right now. And this is something that even Charlamagne the God realizes, which is why he's running to CNN panicking, because he has Breakfast Club callers who are black saying, yeah, I don't believe that Kamala Harris is black, right? Which, again, scares Charlamagne because he knows that that criticism actually lands, okay? And this is why Trump is doubling and tripling down on it, because it works, okay? Don't listen to the elites, black or white conservatives, who are going on national television and saying, oh, Trump shouldn't do this. Trump should engage in this conversation. He needs to focus on the policies. Again, these people don't understand how things actually work, right? Because they're not in touch with normal everyday people. I'm a normal person, right? So that's why I was like, this is actually smart, right? Because this is going to land with normal people. When you call somebody fake, okay, that lands with normal people. And hey, listen, Kamala Harris took it there, right? She called Trump weird. She didn't want to talk about policy. They didn't want to talk about anything except race. And again, these high school attacks like J.D. Vance is weird, Trump is weird. These things, they were all started by the Kamala campaign, right? The Republicans, Trump, we tried to talk about policy, right? They wanted to talk about policy, but they didn't want to do that. They wanted to talk about everything except that. So they started it. And now all of a sudden, when Trump goes there, now all of a sudden, oh, guys, we don't want to have this conversation anymore. We don't want to talk about this anymore. Don't talk about this, guys. Nah. You need to continue to talk about it because it works. In interviews like this is exactly what I'm talking about.
So, Charlamagne, Trump's not backing away from the controversy. Today he went online, he shared a photo of Harris wearing a sari in a family photo, and he writes about it. Your warmth, friendship, and love of your Indian heritage are very much appreciated. Okay, so that's what he did today. Let me just ask it to you this way, though, Charlamagne. Does he deserve credit, as he says, for showing up at the Black Journalists event yesterday?
Peace, Aaron. How are you, first and foremost? No, does he deserve credit? No, he doesn't deserve credit. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't give a damn about any of this, and neither should you. Like, nobody in the media should care. Donald Trump doesn't have any new tricks. He focuses on identity. He focuses on race. He focuses on gender. He makes white America think that the changing demographics of this country are a threat to their livelihood, and he makes them believe if we don't take things back to the way they were, probably 1950 something, then America as they know it will be ruined. It's just a distraction. Like, Public Enemy had a album called Fear of a Black Planet. Trump tries to scare people with the fear of a black and brown America, and we have to stop falling for it. Like, we just have to stop falling for it.
All right,
like,
yeah. All right, so today, though, you talk about it. You tackled it on your show because it's out there. People are talking about it. One of your callers actually called in and said something about it that I wanted to play for everyone so you could explain sort of how this makes you think and feel. Here's the caller.
Man, to be honest, Kamala Harris, she already said that she wasn't black. It's all over everything. She done had interviews. Yeah. I understand. But she already said that she's not black. She identifies as an Indian. When she was running and she did all of that in California. Yes, she has.
No, she hasn't.
Yes, she has.
Listen, have you ever read her book?
No, I don't. I won't. Say what now?
In her book, she specifically talks about how, her mom definitely instilled her Indian heritage in her, but also told her she was a black woman and raised her to be a proud black woman.
They have an interview. She has a verbal interview with a white woman, and she says that she is not black, she is Indian.
Lord have mercy.
So what do you do about that?
What do I do? I tell everybody not to be distracted. And I would say the same thing to the vice president. All the vice president has to do is stay on message. All these conversations about what's black, who's black, forget all that. You know, how you going to put money in people's pockets? How you going to keep people safe? That's what both candidates need to be talking about over the next 95 days. We all know Kamala Harris is black, and we all know she's Indian. And we also know Donald Trump is a bigot, and we know he's divisive. I don't need the media running Donald Trump's greatest hits over and over for the next 95 days. Donald Trump, as of right now, has no real strategy against the vice president. So they're going to say she's a DEI hire. They're going to attempt to weaponize her not having kids. They're going to question her blackness. Ignore it all. Aaron, listen.
But Charlamagne, I understand, but you're talking about the media.
Yeah, so, again, this is so hilarious to me. And this is why I told you guys. The Trump campaign strategy is genius, okay? Because Charlamagne the God, he realizes what's happening, right? Because he talks to black people every day. And when you're actually connected to normal people and you know how normal people think, you know that this is a genius strategy. Because, again, look at what they just played, that clip there. Black dude calls in, mispronounces Kamala's name, by the way, which is something that the media keeps trying to say is hate and bigotry. Oh, Republicans like Trump and J.D. Vance, these white Republicans can't say Kamala's name right. They're doing it on purpose. And it's like, dude, every time I listen to a black person talk about Kamala Harris, they never pronounce her name right. So again, it's not a racist, white elitist thing to not pronounce Kamala's name right. Like, people just don't know how to pronounce her name. And part of the reason why is because her name is not a black name. Her name is an Indian name, right? Which is why black people don't know how to pronounce it. Okay? Because she grew up Indian. But see, here's the funny part. Charlamagne the God, the same person who says, well, I'm voting for Kamala Harris simply because she is black and a woman. Now all of a sudden, let's not talk about identity politics. Let's not talk about race. Let's not talk about gender. You see how that works, guys? Now, all of a sudden, the left wants to run away from identity politics. Why do they want to run away from identity politics? Because Kamala Harris is fake, right? Because now when you talk about identity and you're saying, well, Kamala Harris, what she's presenting herself as from an identity perspective is not real. Again, that gets at the heart of the only selling point that they have. Charlamagne the God is up here talking about, well, Kamala needs to stick to the issues. Both sides need to stick to talking about putting money in people's pockets and how you're going to keep people safe and yada, yada. And it's like, well, Kamala doesn't want to talk about that. The media doesn't want to talk about that. You don't want to talk about that. You only want to talk about that now because Trump has now flipped the identity politics on its face. And now Kamala's playing defense when it comes to her identity. And it works. And it's most certainly working with real black people, right? With real actual black people, it works. Because lately, there has been a movement in the black community to basically define what it means to be a black American, right? To separate from immigrants who come over here. And I'm not saying I necessarily agree with all this stuff. I'm just telling you, this is what's happening. And this is why this line of attack works. It cuts at the heart of the emerging ideology, the emerging kind of cultural recognition of, okay, we are black Americans. Like, it means something to be descendant of slaves. We're distinctly different people from everybody else that the Democrats want to try to throw in the bucket of people of color. Like, that is actively happening. So when Democrats push somebody like Kamala Harris in the face of the black community and say that, well, she's black, even though she is not the descendants of African slaves, her family immigrated over here from other countries. She's actually the descendant of slave owners, according to her father, okay? She descended from an Irish slave owner, right? An Irish slave owner. So we know for a fact that Kamala Harris is of Indian descent, of Irish descent. I'm still trying to figure out where's the evidence that Kamala Harris is black. The only evidence that the left has presented is that, well, we believe that she has a drop of black blood within her, and because of that, that makes her black. Again, they're adhering to the one drop rule, right? which again is a fascinating conversation to have, considering how, again, these people claim to be against, Jim Crow and racism and, all of these things that, the white man did back in the day, which includes classifying people as black or so-called colored if they have one drop of black blood. And now the left is using this same ideology to justify and to defend Kamala Harris as black. Again, you have the left on the ropes when they are using racist ideology to define people by their race, right? To defend Kamala Harris as a black woman. Now they're playing defense, guys. This is exactly what you want them. And while they're playing defense, smart Republicans are now throwing in the policy. Now they're saying, okay, yeah, Kamala Harris is fake. And this is how it relates to her policy. This is how it relates to the disaster that the Biden administration is, right? That's what's happening right now. So, again, this is why Trump is not backing down from it. He's doubling and tripling down. He wants to take the conversation there because the conversation now puts Kamala Harris on defense. Now, again, it really is a shame that this is what we have to do in 2024 in order to force the media and Kamala Harris to actually talk about policy. But that's just the reality. We're not just competing against Kamala Harris, guys. We're competing against the media as well, too. So only thing that Trump did was that he took advantage of the media and how the media reacts to everything he says. And he flipped it back around on Kamala. He's using the media against Kamala. And Charlamagne the God knows that. Any smart person actually knows that. And again, this is why he's begging them, stop having a conversation. Stop falling for it. This is why Joy Reid and all these other liberal black women were so upset about the black journalist event allowing Trump to come, because they knew that Trump was going to walk in there and that he was going to drag his scrotum all over those black journalists. And that's why they didn't want him on stage. Even though as a journalist, as a so-called journalist, you should want to interview the former president of the United States who's running for president again, right? That's something that you should want to do, because as a so-called journalist, you do have a duty to question the former president of the United States and to get the American people the answers they're looking for. But again, because these people aren't journalists, they're propagandists. Again, they already knew that, oh, well, Trump's going to come in and he's going to run roughshod over these people. And it's going to make them look good, especially among black folks, right? And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. So again, when people say, oh, this doesn't matter, I don't care about her race. Well, actually, it does matter. Because if it didn't matter, then why would the Democrats be running on Kamala Harris as a black woman? Why are they running on it if it don't matter? It clearly matters. Clearly, it matters to voters. So again, if you can counteract that by saying that, well, she's fake, and put questions in people's mind about whether or not she's actually black, again, you're attacking her biggest strength in probably the most effective way possible, which is to say that, hey, she ain't really black. How can you vote for somebody because they're black if they're not really black? It's genius. It really is.
And I'm not taking it personally, but I do think it's important in part because of that caller.
Media too, though.
I know,
media too.
Yeah, no, I understand, but that caller calls in, and whether it should or shouldn't, sometimes it just is. If it gets into the ether and it starts affecting how people think and feel, then that becomes an actual problem.
Yeah, it is.
How do you deal with that? You get calls like that. You actually have an opportunity to interact with someone to try to explain. Do you feel like people hear you?
Yes, I have no problem telling that young man he's bugging. Well, or you could say he's half right? Because, yes, the vice president has said she's Indian, but she also says she's black because she's both. And that's why we need to ignore it all. The media should focus on whatever candidate is talking about the issues. Anything else is not worth the airtime. How many times is Donald Trump going to run the same trick over and over and over, and we continue to fall for it and be distracted? Focus on the issues. Focus on the candidate that has an actual plan for America.
Again, we tried that, Charlamagne. That's not what your candidate wants to do. The Republicans want to do that. We're begging to do that, right? We don't want to be sitting here talking about Kamala Harris's race and her sex, but you guys, your part of the aisle thinks that her race and her sex is such a big deal that you're running on that. That is a reason to vote for her. That's the reason you're voting for her, right? That's the reason you're voting for her, Charlamagne. That's the reason that you're endorsing her, but you didn't endorse Joe Biden because Joe Biden's a white man. But because Kamala Harris is a so-called black woman, according to you, this is why you endorse her. So, of course, attacking her blackness and whether or not she's actually black is effective for people that think like you. Again, this is what this guy doesn't really understand. Your candidate is not trying to talk about the issues. She doesn't have any policies to run on. She's trying to flip on policies because she's fake. She'll say anything to anybody in order to get votes. She'll be anybody who she needs to be in order to get votes. She's a chameleon. She is fake. And that line of attack is effective. People know it. People can see it. And people don't like fake. Okay? That's the same thing that got Hillary, not being authentic. It's the same thing that got Elizabeth Warren, not being authentic. This line of attack works, and they know it works, just like the DEI line of attack works, because everybody knows that Kamala Harris is incompetent. Everybody knows that. These are the same people, Democrats, who could not endorse Kamala Harris to continue to be VP just a year ago. They were thinking about getting rid of her and putting Pete Buttigieg on the ticket, right? This is what we were thinking about doing. So again, when these people boohoo, whine, and cry about these attacks, it tells you everything you need to know, that they work. Now the media is obsessed with it. This is all they're talking about. Oh, is Kamala Harris actually black? Is she fake? Now they're playing defense, guys. This was not going to happen if the Republicans just stuck to policy. And again, it's not that I don't want them to. I want them to. But what I realized just over the past week is that that's just not going to work. That's not going to move the needle, right? Saying that, oh, well, Kamala Harris is flip-flopping on the border, or, you know, calling out Kamala Harris's disastrous liberal policy positions, that only takes you so far because the media can just drown that out, right? There's nothing really newsworthy about that in today's news cycle. Again, it's unfortunate because it should be. I'm not saying it shouldn't be like that. It should be like that. Well, the only thing we're talking about is the policy and that's it. But it's not. So you have to realize how the media operates, what the Democrats are doing, and you have to adjust your strategy. And what Trump did was controversial, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, if they can make this conversation about policy, if they can connect her being fake back to the policies and the flip-flopping and the disaster that the Biden administration has been, that's a very effective line of attack, and they know it. They all know it. This is why they're panicking. This is why they're like, how do we stop talking about this? Well, you can't stop talking about it because you're the media and you're obsessed with race. You're the ones that are obsessed with race, and because you're obsessed with race, Trump has flipped it back on Kamala Harris, and now people are like, oh, well, is Kamala actually black? Is she fake? Is she actually who she says she is? Which, again, is a proven strategy to destroy somebody's campaign. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.